I'm Mark Dresner, and this is DDP TV, featuring the leaders and experts in drug development and delivery technologies. DDP TV is brought to you by Drug Delivery Partnerships, an annual conference focusing on the future of drug delivery technologies and the partnerships and best practices that make those technologies possible. Joining me today is Bob Bloder. He is the Vice President of Business Development at AVEVA. Bob, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Bob, there's a lot going on in drug delivery right now globally. We are looking at issues with R&D, business development. We are looking at changing market drivers and dynamics. Can you speak to us a little bit? Pipelines are parched. Can you speak to us a little bit about what are the ramifications of what's taking place right now as you see it?
Sure, Mark. You know, this is a unique time in pharmaceuticals. Never before have I seen such pressure put on the pharmaceutical companies for meeting their numbers, the pressure on the pipelines that is coming in, and actually the failures are really resulting in this type of entrepreneurial renaissance where people are able to come out now and get products that perhaps aren't going to be utilized by the big pharma companies anymore for a multitude of reasons. One, namely being that the funding that's involved is being really scrutinized. And people know that if you kill projects earlier, the better off you are because you're spending less going forward. So people are more inclined to kill projects earlier than to see them through the next stage. So that leaves a lot of passionate people who have spent decades working on compounds for over $1 billion to get a product to market still, and saying, hey, I still believe in this project. What do I do? And that opportunity now is creating in the service industry, who potentially have excess capacity and capital, an opportunity to fill in those spaces and then see a project to go forward. That hasn't happened in my career in pharmaceuticals, and I've been in this game since the late 80s.
I want to take us on a little sidetrack, and that is, can you tell our audience a little bit about your background, because you have an interesting...
Well, thanks. And, you know, I've very much enjoyed the opportunity to start in pharmaceuticals in the late 80s with Park Davis, and carried the bag for a while, and then went into marketing, did your normal marketing rotation. And then every time I aspired to go ahead and go back for an education, do something different, I happened to be with Warner Lambert, which was experiencing their decade of fastest growth. And every time I did that, they would promote me somewhere else. And that's really been a key and a linchpin to my career success and what I've accomplished to date, because I got to see the full value chain delivery of healthcare from the beginning to end. And big pharma, you really don't get that chance. You're really more of a domain expert. You stay in a space. And so I'm very thankful for that. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But that set me up to move forward into the rest of my career, entrepreneurial run with ESP Pharma as one of the founders, and then here in drug delivery with AVEVA Drug Delivery Systems. So I thank you for asking.
Going back to that entrepreneurial component and to the state of the industry, if you will, we have Wall Street implications, right? We have manufacturers increasing their outsourcing. We have a lot of new issues that people are really, you know, struggling with in some cases. In some cases, they're going out like gangbusters and really doing well, and in part, that's, I think, fueling that entrepreneurial spirit, that renaissance, as you put it, from the opening bid. Can you expound on that a little bit for us?
Sure, Mark. I think it's an interesting topic, because when you're looking at some of these drivers, and one thing we know is that outsourcing of pipelines by big pharma is actually improving their internal rates of return. And so when you have that dynamic, it puts more pressure on contract manufacturing organizations, contract sales organizations to go ahead and increase capacity. Therefore, their overhead costs are going up. And when they're able to go ahead and be ready for big pharma, they can still take that 30% extra capacity and work with other companies who don't have that fixed structure.
Right.
And that has been beautiful in terms of seeing products come to market. And when you combine that with orphan drugs and rare diseases, where the government is now pushing big pharma, as they have been for a while, to say, hey, get back in the game. Don't just go after the blockbusters, the billion-dollar products. What about these other diseases? These people deserve to have an improved quality of life. And now we can go ahead and address them because of this excess capacity. You have different people feeding money into the system to still streamline a project. So from that scientist who has that passion, who's taking a project through, he now has resources to call upon to actually get the job done that weren't present before, perhaps say 10, 20 years ago.
You've given me an interesting bridge here, and that is precision or personalized medicine. Yeah. How is that affecting drug delivery from your perspective?
I like that term. I'm going to coin that, precision medicine, because I think it is exactly moving in that direction. It used to be called personalized medicine, where people were heading in. And it's interesting because people thought that perhaps a decade or two ago, personalized medicine was going to come in, the genome has been cracked, here we go.
Right.
And you know what? It didn't happen. But it takes time, just like the internet. Before it began to change our lives, before Steve Jobs changed our lives and we didn't know it, there was this personalized medicine. Well, now, with devices coming into vogue, with the organizations in terms of approvals, the FDA, the EU, NICE working together for pharmacoeconomic outcomes, we can actually see devices coming in much better and working with products. In fact, I suspect that in the next decade, we'll see that companies who are focusing in rare diseases are actually going to have a partner that is a drug device to go ahead and look at surrogate marker testing so that they can actually say, this drug will work great for Mark, doesn't work so well for Bob. The side effect profile isn't so good. And they're going to screen that out. So therefore you have a better desired outcome.
So surrogate markers are certainly going to be getting more attention, perhaps, than they have traditionally.
In my opinion.
As we move forward, yeah. I want to go back to that entrepreneurial component because I think it's a really important dynamic that we're experiencing. You know, we talk big pharma, we talk small pharma, we talk biotech, niche, people going into precision medicine, or, you know, if it's not even a therapeutic area, something even, you know, drilling down from there. Big pharma doesn't breed entrepreneurs traditionally.
True.
So where is all of this innovation coming from your perspective? Can you speak to any of that?
That's an interesting point, and I think the innovation is coming from the training that big pharma has allowed for much of the industry professionals who are dedicated to pharmaceuticals. And in fact, they now have the confidence to go out because they have the experience to go forward. And that passion and that confidence, then combined with some of the infrastructure pieces we talked about to put together, gives you a business model that is investable by private equity, investment banks, venture capital, angels, working organizations, et cetera. That's where we are headed. But the information technology can't be minimized here as well, because many of these people are still in silos, and the connectivity, they aren't making all these matches going forward and connections. But now through the internet, you're able to go ahead and say, hey, let's look at LinkedIn. I need to find a guy like Mark who is really involved here. Well, the internet now is ubiquitous. Everybody has a phone. You're able to use it. So not only are you collecting the businesses, but think about what it does for the patient and the delivery of healthcare again. I mean, for years, we tried to deliver not only the right drug to the right person for the right indication, but we tried to give them the best outcome that they could have for an improved quality of life. A lot of that requires some high touch points, learning intermediaries, checking on you once a day, once a week to see how you're doing. Right. The internet has made that possible. For a lower cost now, we can have those touch points and maybe keep people from being diagnosed in emergency rooms where they cost the most money, and actually being caught earlier in the system where they can be taken in, put under the proper care, and managed appropriately for a better outcome.
Last question, there are a lot of opportunities technologically? I mean, we are really, the pace of change is accelerating. We are really learning perhaps faster than we are wise. How well do you think we're keeping up with what is possible right now? If you had to get, I don't want, we touched on kind of a 10-year prediction, but I'd rather
beyond.
just kind of scorecard.
Well, I think it's, I personally feel that we've done a pretty good job of managing technology doubling every 5 years. It's probably even a faster rate now, based on those in the expert level. But if I look at what we've done with cloning, stem cells, and other pieces of that information, and as Big Pharma, we felt a little bit curtailed, that we weren't going to be able to do what we needed to do, and other countries would get ahead of us. That really hasn't happened. We see people are being treated with stem cells. Banking of stem cells is now happening. It's still at a higher rate, and I feel that we're doing okay. Are we looking at cloning and other things that are controversial interest? Yeah, they're out there, and we're seeing them happening. But everybody is still looking at the U.S. to innovate and lead and provide that lattice work and infrastructure that can really be maximized for a benefit. And we're seeing that with the multinational companies who are coming here to set up beachheads and gain our talent pools and leverage the assets that really started here with Big Pharma, and what would be considered a capitalistic mentality is actually still showing a benefit in terms of how we move forward and how we innovate, and other people are still looking to catch up and replicate. So I personally feel good about it. Yeah.
One final question, because you brought it up, and that is emerging markets. There are a lot of innovations taking place in India, for example. Open heart surgery for $2,500 or something along those lines. There is that possibility. Where do you see the drug delivery industry going in terms of emerging markets moving forward?
That's a great question, and well, where it is today, and we'll just see it become more and more pervasive, is emerging markets have less resources. China is going to be, well, it's going to surpass the U.S. It's predicted to do so, and Japan in terms of their needs. As they build their infrastructure, they still have short-term needs that we take for granted. So having the ability to take a project or a product that required refrigeration and make it be something that could be portable, put in your pocket, and then utilized with a device combination or through drug delivery, well, that makes that product now accessible to people who really have a need for it today. Same thing in the South American region, et cetera. This is one area where you talk about needs and resources. The other is just in cost, driving costs down so you could get the products into the hands of people more economically. It's something that the U.S. is actually burdened for a long time. Yes. Everybody wants to get approved in the U.S. first, and then we'll leverage the product out to other markets. It's a safe business model. It makes sense. But now we need to go ahead and cross that chasm and get to a point where we can begin delivering, in some cases, drugs uniquely for those emerging markets.
Bob, terrific insight and an excellent perspective for our listeners. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was
Thanks,
really
Mark.
a pleasure to have you. That'll conclude this episode of DDP TV. It's brought to you by the Drug Delivery Partnerships Conference. For more information about our event, please visit us at www.iirusa.com/DDP. Until next time, I'm Mark Dresner. Thanks for joining us.